Hello, thanks for stopping by. I've been enjoying doing some florals recently. Just kind of a different thing from doing the usual landscapes I do. And I just wanted to demonstrate this particular one, which I hope you can tell is peonies. I think I'm kind of rushing spring a little. I think peonies are one of my favorite flowers. They're fragrant and they're beautiful and they last a long time as bouquets and in the garden. And I was so excited when we moved here and there were a bunch of peonies. So I thought I'd just kind of dip into the world of peonies with this. You can see I'm already did the outline all around the flowers, a dark background to make the peonies kind of pop out in this painting. I will add more detail. I think you can see I put a little bit of detail in here already later on, but after I did the background, I thought I would go ahead and start working on the peonies. For the background, I used I'm just working with my regular palette, and for those of you who've taken any of my classes or have my book, Getting It Right, which is available on Amazon or from me, I have my Hooker's Green Dark, Cerulean Blue, Ultramarine Blue. I do sometimes use a Phthalo Blue, but you have to be really careful with that because it just eats up the canvas. I mean, it pops right out. You can see in my painting I put a little bit up here, and it's pretty brilliant. So I use it very sparingly. In fact, I don't usually use it for my classes. I use a yellow Hansa light, or I think this one might be CAD yellow light. CAD yellow medium, I almost really shouldn't put it out. I don't use it very much anymore. This is Indian yellow, quad red, this is CAD red medium, alizarin crimson, and a little Van Dyke red. So that's the palette I'm using for this painting, and that's what I used on the background. I drew everything out first. I'm going to pick up that little bit of pencil using a watercolor pencil because it kind of bleeds into my paints. I'll show you right here. It's just a watercolor pencil, and I can get rid of it very easily if I so choose. But it will just, rather than using a regular pencil, I use the watercolor pencil, and it'll just bleed into my colors. I chose to use a red watercolor pencil this time. Sometimes I use a French gray or a Payne's gray, but I used the red this time because I was doing pink peonies, and I thought that would work fine. So after I drew it, then I came back in and I just did really, really wet with my colors. The Hooker's Green Deep, Cerulean Blue, Ultramarine Blue. Used a little bit of Van Dyke brown in a few places just to kind of deepen it up. Used some Indian yellow. I might note, for those of you who've never taken any of my classes, I work almost entirely with transparent colors. Sometimes I do have a few colors that are less transparent, but I work in a transparent process with my acrylics on a specially prepared canvas, which you can find elsewhere on my YouTube. And also I give really great instructions on YouTube on how to prepare the canvas. And I also have, like I said, I have a book out through Amazon called Getting It Right. And that focuses in my particular technique, which was just something I kind of stumbled on a long, long time ago, and I've been painting that way ever since. These are watercolor techniques that I'm using, but I do not work on watercolor paper because it just doesn't do the same thing as the canvases that I use. So I'm just going to add a little more color in here. You can hear my brush hitting the water there in the background. I'm using very little color because it doesn't take much to bring out the the lovely pink in these peonies. So I leave some white spaces because that kind of indicates some light coming through. So right there I used a little bit of, I think I hit that Q red, and now I'm going to just drop in the tiniest bit in that wet. I'm going to drop in just a little bit of the Indian yellow, which is transparent, and see how I like that. If I think it's, again, you can hear my brush tapping into the water, use a lot of water, then I dry my brush off. I'm going to get a little bit of that, gosh, that red, and I'm also getting some alizarin crimson. As you can see, my brush point, just going to barely edge the bottom of that petal, and it's going to bleed up. And then I'm going to come around on the top of the petal, hardly touch it at all. I'm going back into this drier petal right here just to emphasize the space between those petals. And you know, that's the nice thing about working transparent. If I decide I want to deepen it up, which I'm going to do now, I'm going to grab just a little more red and bring it up. Now I'm going to start on this back petal back here. I'm hardly using any color. It doesn't take much when you're working in a watercolor style. I really enjoy working on the canvas that I have to prepare especially, which is kind of a little bit of a pain, but I do a lot of them at once. And if this is a process that you think you'd like to try, like I said, on my YouTube I have very specific instructions, and you can always drop me a note too if you have any questions. Okay, you can see how little color I'm using. My palette, again, I'll show you. It almost looks, I mean, I'm just hardly picking up any color. No white, I'm not using any white. This is strictly transparent colors. And the one red is a warm red, and alizarin crimson tends to be a little bit cooler. And if I warm it up, I want to warm it up just a little bit, I'll get just a little bit of cad red medium, which is not transparent, but when I'm using it for a base, such as right here, it's okay. Now if I really can't lay it over on top of anything very well because it is opaque, it tends to just kind of sit there and not look like it's like it fits there. Dropping in a little bit of the Indian yellow again, just to warm those petals up. And the reason I'm doing this particular demo today is I wanted my students to see how little paint it actually needs to get these pale colors. And it will dry lighter. Then I think I tell my students that when you're working with transparent acrylics, I'm picking up a little of that color, and then I dry my brush off on my rag, which is off to the side here. Your colors are always going to dry lighter. So in other words, like when I did this background to begin with, it was really, really deep. But now I can come back in, jumping over to the background here, and I can pick up a little bit of darker green and blue, and I can just do a little bit of detail on the back of this, kind of abstract detail, just to indicate, you know, that there's foliage in the back, that there's leaves back there. And again, this is just kind of an abstract process, dark overlay. And so I think you can see that how that'll just add a little bit of interest, but won't be overpowering. Then, of course, I have my leaves in here, leaf segments and stems that'll be definitely stand out against that dark background also. So I just did this today because I thought it would be a good example for my students of how watery I really do work at times. In fact, I would say most of the time. Some of my florals have been a little heavier, and I've used white, but I'm getting ready to teach a workshop on March 31st with florals, and I wanted this for a demonstration for my students so they could see how little paint it really takes. And again, this really, these are watercolor techniques. I just happen to really enjoy working with acrylics on canvas, and again, specially prepared canvas. I have to use gel medium to size it. Part of the reason, one of the advantages to working with acrylics over watercolors is once they dry, they're permanent. So I can go over and glaze if I so choose to. In other words, lay over a thin transparent color on top, either warming it up or cooling it down or deepening the value. And so I really find working that way is really nice. And because the colors are permanent, they won't muddy. When I lay a glaze over, it won't muddy it won't lift up the colors from underneath and make a muddy mess. Instead, I'll have some really clear colors. I'm going to go ahead and pick up a little bit of that really intense phthalo blue, and I'm just going to dibble, just show you how I can just dibble a little in there. Again, just doing a little detailing, and I'll do that throughout the whole background. Just indicating some shadows in the back, some light. And again, because I work transparent, I can pick up a little bit of another transparent and lay it on top. So in other words, I picked up a little of the Hansa light, which is transparent, and laid it on top there just because I wanted a little bit of a hint of yellow right there that wasn't there. I might pick up a little bit of the Indian yellow, and because it's wet, it's kind of bleeding in, which is kind of fun. It's doing a wet and wet thing. So that's the process I'm doing, and rather than bore you with watching wet paint dry, I will tell you, you can probably go to my website, and this painting should be there for you to see. I think I also have some cactus that I had done in the same very watery style, but not the dark background. So you can see some more examples of my florals, and I really thank you for stopping by today, and I hope your day goes well. Thanks so much.